the the most interesting thing that I've learned in the last few years of entrepreneurism and setting your own goals is more often than not, you've been told what goals you should set.
I am your host, David Owasi. Now I am here with my friend, someone who I've had lots of respect for over the years, Jeff Consul. Why don't you introduce yourself, Jeff?
Hey, David, how's it going? My name is Jeff Consul. I'm a professional coach originally from Canada, but now based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. One of my key roles right now is I do a lot of development and design work for what the learning paths look like for organizations around the world, for the tech ed slash complete university innovation company, Mind Valley. So, yeah.
So can you just share with me, your fascination? Why were you interested in entrepreneurship in the first place?
Sure. For me personally, on starting my own business was kind of a means to an end. I didn't have a lot of funds to really kind of throw around for university and education. So I got initially involved with College Pro as a way of making money so that way I can live. And then after that, kind of the work that you need to do to be successful in that environment led me down the road of personal development and then coaching and then the rest is history.
And what was your first day in business like? I know you have shared with me, now many conversations over the years and some of the, the big school of hard knocks, if you will. Can you just share with me kind of what your first day of business ownership was like?
Yeah. Essentially, when you get the chance to operate your first business, you get kind of woken up to the understanding that you're only as good as the work that you're able to build and the structures in the organization you're able to build. And it causes a great deal of maturity to happen very quickly. So yeah, it's an intense experience.
Absolutely. And the reason why I'm asking that question, Jeff, is a lot of people who are listening are probably thinking, should I start my own first business? It sounds pretty cool. But no one is really telling them about, the hard struggle of the first year. And what should someone who is looking to go into entrepreneurship, what would you advise them to expect in that?
I think that that's really a tough one you can't nail it down because ultimately lots of businesses are different and lots of people are different. So there's a lot of variables. But if you were trying to, I think the biggest piece of advice, or the thing that most entrepreneurs, business owners, or people who ever lead their own projects can kind of validate or nod their head to, is the idea that more often than not, you get into these sorts of situations because you want to pursue a certain level of freedom and decision-making capacity, and the process of taking ownership over something, putting your name on it, and going through creating it is far from a freeing experience. It can be a very long process of commitment, as well as kind of an understanding that you're going to have to be in a certain place at a certain time doing certain things for a very long period of time. And I think that freedom can be a bit of an illusion.
I like the idea of freedom being an illusion. I felt certainly in some ways in my first year it was great to be my own boss, but then of course that comes with a lot of responsibilities and problems, good problems. What would you say were the biggest takeaways that really shaped your perception and your ideas and knowledge of entrepreneurship? Any sort of takeaways?
Well, I think most recently it's just the understanding that because all of the shit that comes out of people's mouths in conversations like this are the things that get said again and again and again, right? They're the tropes and the cliches, like, oh, you have to make sure that you set your goals for the right reasons. You have to make sure that you kind of account for your time. That's going to be really important. Don't forget to really be passionate and really think and manifest your own delivery. I think the most interesting thing that I've learned in the last few years of entrepreneurism and setting your own goals is more often than not, you've been told what goals you should set. And when you kind of dig a little bit deeper, when you start kind of looking at the numbers and you start kind of bumping up against things, you'll realize that a lot of the time, the things that you're after, the things that you're trying to achieve are actually accomplished with much smaller goals than you'd set out for yourself. It doesn't really require you to do $1 million business or a $2 million business to have quite a substantially well-off life. And I think that de-escalating our goals, learning how to look and recognize things that you need to eliminate from your time are important aspects. That's the biggest lesson for me. When I stopped needing to be the one who needed to solve the world's problems, my life got substantially better and my projects got more interesting.
That is a very, very interesting point to make, because in my recent conversation with Leighton Healy, and Leighton is someone who's been very important in both of our journeys in entrepreneurship, he actually broke down the sort of 3 to 4 types of entrepreneurs there are. I think number one, he said there was the lifestyle
lifestyle, legacy, and then yeah.
So I think the lifestyle is kind of what you're referring to. Someone who basically just wants to support their life by running a business. They want to have their vacation, 2-3 times a year. I can just live a pretty comfortable, normal life. And then we have the exit-oriented entrepreneur, someone who wants to build a business just for the purpose of selling it, right? And selling it to a bigger company or, whatever. And then we have the legacy entrepreneur who wants to solve one of the biggest world's problem, the space problem or the water problem, or like the Microsoft and the Bill Gates. And then we have what he actually calls con artists. So these are people who are entrepreneurs. They want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't want to put in the work. They want to just be entrepreneurs and name only. They're happy to, send out all the business cards about them being CEO of something that does nothing really. And it kind of just broke all that. But I'm very curious, to really ask you a follow-up question based on your realization of why that is important. Why do you think it's important to really understand the type of entrepreneur you are?
Yeah, I don't think it's as simple as identifying what category you are, right? I think that we need to be careful about things like that, because it has the same benefit of calling yourself a Slytherin or a Hogwarts or like a Gryffindor, right? People are quite fluid. They transform from year to year, and their different plans, how things change, whether you plan on having kids or your wife gets pregnant or a tragedy happens in your life, it's going to shape your motivations and impact you, right? So the reasons why you start a business can change substantially throughout the time, by the time you finish the business. So I don't know how useful it is to kind of label ourselves with such black and white labels, right? However, I think that there's wisdom in taking the time to understand, what are your intentions? Why are you running this business? Is it for legacy? Is it currently for the idea that you want to solve the world's problems? Are you trying to make enough money to make ends meet? Or are you trying to achieve freedom? And then take the time to unpack, is that the easiest way of doing it? Because most of the time starting a business is a huge responsibility, and it has consequences, right?
It's really just understanding your why at the end of the day and being honest with yourself about why you're doing this.
Yeah. And I think that comes, like, it's easier said than done, right? True. Understand, again, it fits into that stack of cliches you hear. It's like, understand your why, start with why, make sure your why. When I was 18, my why was to be filthy rich and to travel the world. Like, that was my why. That was as deep as it got. And if you convince yourself that it's like, I know my why, and that's somehow the big deal, that's not nearly as important as your skill of watching your why, knowing what your why is today and knowing what your why is tomorrow, and shifting for that why. Because that flexibility is important, right? That you got to take it one step further. You have to be able to ask yourself later, why was that important to me? Why should it be important now? Who benefits from me wanting this? Those are important questions. So I advocate a flexibility of why.
Absolutely fascinating. Thank you for your insights, Jeff. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show. I've really, as usual, enjoyed many philosophical nature of our conversations. It's been so much fun. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeff.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me, David. It's good to see you.
Absolutely.